xBuilders podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of the xBuilders podcast. Today, I have with me Mark Paul from Itheum. Hello, Mark. How are you?
Hi, Razwan. How's it going? Great to be here.
Yeah, great to finally be able to to do this together. So I think a lot of people from the ecosystem already know you, but would be awesome to just give a brief introduction of yourself, like the background, your experience.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me. We've been trying to plan this for a while, so we finally got around to doing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So hi, everybody. My name is Mark Paul. I'm the co-founder of Itheum. I've been in traditional tech for about 20 years. I've been in Web3 tech since about 2017. Founded Itheum around, in its Web3 format. It's been around for about 18 months, but Itheum's been a Web2 data platform for about 4 years now. Prior to this, I used to do, I'm a software engineer by background, many years of software engineering. I used to work, from my earliest work, I used to work for MSN. I used to do a lot of work in social media, in their social media products like MSN Messenger and all these things most people would have used at some point in the past. I also worked many years in the digital health space. I'm very big fan of health technology and digital health technology. Just generally in every sort of job I did, I saw this common issue with data, and which kind of prompted me, to start Itheum. So that's my journey to where I am today.
Yeah, that's great. And I think a lot of Web3 projects have at least one technical co-founder.
Yeah, you should, I think.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, I think you should at least have a core member, core technical person in your team, because Web3, whatever you do, I think it's so technical yet, at least.
Yeah. I mean, not even Web3, man. Like if you think of every company now is a tech company. So you need an edge, which is usually an edge that comes from technology, right? So you have to have, I would say, even if you have a founding team, at least half of them should be technical, in my opinion.
Yeah. So you told me about how you started Itheum, but if you can tell us a little more about kind of the period before joining MultiversX and how you ended up joining MultiversX and build Itheum here.
Yeah, that's a very interesting story. So Itheum was around for about 3 years. It was a data protocol where just Web2 technology, like you can take ownership of your data in Web2 world. But really, we were not getting a lot of traction because it's kind of weird when you go to a Web2 company and talk about data ownership. They don't get it. Yeah. So around, I think about 12 to 13 months ago, I used to spend a lot of time thinking about how to convert Itheum to Web3. So there was a time when I used to play around with a lot of this EVM sort of technologies, do a lot of coding, Solidity, all of that stuff. And then I discovered a project called Moralis. So Moralis is it's kind of famous now, but when 12 months ago they just launched, and then I started playing with Moralis. I really liked it because it simplified the tooling to build Web3 tools. So, and I wanted to build some proof of concepts for Itheum. So that's when we first built the data DEX and the data NFT technology. It was built on Ethereum and also Polygon. And we used Moralis for all of this. And then Moralis ran its first hackathon. So we took part in that, and then we ended up being one of the winners of that hackathon, which is kind of how Itheum was introduced to the world. Moralis has a really famous founder called Ivan on Tech. Most people know him, and this really opened a lot of doors for us because once we were one of the winners, we were introduced to some venture capitalists, and our lead investor, Morningstar Ventures, was introduced by Moralis, and because of we were one of the hackathon winners. And it just so happens in that hackathon, Elrond was one of the sponsors, but like a very small sponsor. And like I had never heard of Elrond, like I knew all the L1s. So I remember like when I was building the Morales proof of concept, it gave bonus points if we integrated with this chain called Elrond. It's a new chain called Elrond, right? So and I tried to, and I did integrate, and I integrated with the Ledger login with Elrond, and we put that as part of the hackathon. Anyway, we were one of the winners. We were introduced to Morningstar, and then Morningstar really liked what we were doing with the data technology. And then Morningstar introduced us to Elrond, who they were called Elrond then. We formed a good relationship with them. MultiversX then became one of our investors as well. The foundation became one of our investors. And then that's when we were introduced to MultiversX. So no one actually forced us to come and build on Elrond. We had actually built a lot on Polygon and Ethereum, but I started to see like technical challenges in those chains. And I thought when I started digging into Elrond and MultiversX, I was really impressed with what I saw. And then we just said, okay, we'll build on MultiversX. And then in a future point of time, we might look at multi-chain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. And we'll touch more on that a bit later on. But
Sure.
For now, can you provide us with a high level overview of Itheum and what it aims to achieve in the long run?
Sure. So yeah, Itheum, if you unpack it, can get quite complex, but I'll try to keep it as simple as possible.
Exactly.
It's effectively a data and identity protocol, and its role is to get you as an individual to take ownership of your data and your identity. And we provide like a suite of protocol tools and infrastructure tools for this to happen. That's a high level thing. But fundamentally what we're doing is it's called data brokerage technology, or specifically decentralized data brokerage technology. Simply put, man, like just like any other brokerage technology, if you get one person with some valuable data and they want to sell it to another person, the broker usually sits in the middle and they do the deal, right? It's like buying a house. If you want to buy a house, you would go to a real estate agent who's like the broker between the buyer and seller. So in data, this happens a lot. In the Web2 world, everyone's brokering your data. So we figured, listen, data is a huge industry. Surely in 5 years from now, no one's going to be talking about Web2 data brokers. There has to be a decentralized way to do it, and we built Itheum to do this. So we are like the data brokerage platform, bringing together data creators, data consumers. They trade data with each other and so on. So that's what Itheum is at the moment. Itheum is going to evolve into a lot more of this. It's going to have identity, reputation, and all of these sort of really cool features coming in future.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that sounds great. And now digging a little bit deeper into this, what benefits do users have of converting or using NFTs, data NFTs, like converting their data into NFTs instead of traditional data storage?
Yeah, so to answer that question, we got to kind of look at like how our data is taken from us now, right? Like all of us, we cannot ignore the fact that when we use like a free app on our phone, effectively it's not free. They're taking your data from you.
We are the users.
We're the product.
We are the product. Yeah.
And we are paying for it with the data. I mean, this is you can see it all the time when you use a free social media app. Somehow they know everything about you, and then they push ads at you.
Yeah.
So then you have to think about, okay, if we don't like this, then what's the alternate? And then the alternate is maybe you take all of your data and then you just keep it at home on your hard disk or something like that. But then it's pointless as well. Like, we want to share this data, but we want to have some control of it, right? And this is where Ethereum comes in, man. Like we say, okay, listen, you can take ownership of your data through apps that support the Ethereum protocol. But then you need some mechanism to like seamlessly trade it, right? And guess what? Just turns out that NFT is like the perfect tool for this, like non-fungible token. Yeah. Your data is non-fungible because everyone's data is different. And all the protocols support NFT standards, right? Like marketplaces support it, smart contracts support it, layer 1 support it. So, hey, what if we could then trade data as NFTs? And that's how we came up with data NFTs. We said the front end is the regular NFT standard. The back end is a data stream, which just moves around with the NFT. So it's effectively, we're trying to like solve it, the data trading and the brokerage using portable standards that already exist, which is the NFT standard. And in MultiversX, more appropriately, the SFT standard.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's great because I keep telling people from a lot of time that NFTs have a lot of use cases out in the world. So there are not just, I don't know, pictures you can look at it, or just movie tickets, or just I don't know, game items, or they.
Yeah.
I think like sky is the limit really with the use cases for NFTs
Yeah.
and SFTs.
Yeah, it's not even,
Yeah.
I don't even think we have seen
Yeah, exactly.
like version 1 of NFTs, right?
Yeah.
Maybe we are seeing version 1 now, which is the image. But
Yeah.
man, I think almost everything can fit into non-fungible
Yeah.
standard, token standard.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. Yeah, yeah, that's awesome, and it's very intriguing to to see what will happen in the next years. So I think like everyone got a pretty good idea of how Ethereum works and what it wants to achieve. But what's the status of the project right now?
yeah, so we launched the token 12 months ago. We had the proof of concept, as I mentioned, that won a bunch of hackathons. So then we very quickly realized that we have very ambitious roadmap, right? And
Yeah,
we can't be like naive about it. We can't say, listen, we're going to build for 5 years and then we promise you we'll give you something in 5. We didn't want to do that, right? And
Yep.
our team is quite like, we come from like traditional technology background, so we are very used to like delivering quickly and iterating. So we then broke off our protocol into like 5 components. We said that the first one should be something around distribution of rewards for when you trade your data. So we call this the claims portal. So we shipped this to mainnet about 6 months ago. And the second one is like the biggest piece. It's like the biggest chunk of our protocol. It's called data NFT technology, which I just described. How do you trade and license your data? And the data NFT marketplace, where everyone can come together and trade data. So this is actually all built, smart contracts audited, community testing has passed, and it's going to go to mainnet like literally momentarily. Like we're in the last stages of deploying it.
Yep.
We're doing a sort of a guarded launch, which I can explain a bit later. So once this is out, we've got a few more components, which is around reputation. We have a feature called soulbound reputation that's coming up in about 2 months. Then our identity protocol, which is NFMe ID. And then finally, what we call Itheum Fabric, which is like a much more complex product. But yeah, so if you look at it in this way, we've got about 30 to 35% of our protocol nearly shipped to mainnet. And then that paves the path to the other stuff that's coming up.
Yeah, that sounds great, and I told you before I'm really curious to also try and see how can we work with it on Giants, because I think we have a lot of use cases there.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, not just Giants, I'm like, even the token stream thing is very interesting to me. Token trip, right? Like, because we can see immediately. It's quite interesting. Like when you use our tech, you'll see what we mean. It looks like an NFT marketplace, but it's got like these really interesting features where, the NFT has data behind it. So we have to verify that the data is available before somebody buys the NFT. So we started thinking about, okay, how can we make the payments as a stream? Because this would make sure that all the participants are, maintaining the right sort of environment for data to be traded. So these are conversations we have to have at some point.
yeah, for sure. So what was the most rewarding part of working on Etheum so far? Like the happiest moment you had?
Oh, definitely. I think the token launch, we were like so happy, man. Like to be part of the launch pad, to come after HoloRide. HoloRide was so hyped, and and then we got to meet all the MultiversX core team, all the partners. Like this was like really mind blowing to us. Like the first time we experienced, I guess, the MultiversX ecosystem, the community, everyone supported us. So that was like the highlight when we did the token launch. But then we very quickly realized, listen, that's just not, that was just step one, right? Like we have so much to do.
Yeah.
But since then, community, man, like it's just like the MultiversX community is awesome. Like I'm like, I know a lot of the founders, all the founders are great of all the projects. This has been the highlight for me. Like the technology aside, like we'll get to the technology itself, which we love.
Yeah.
But I think community, opportunity, the positive energy, all of that stuff has been great.
Yeah, I totally agree. So, what's in your opinion the most significant advantage of building Itheum on MultiversX?
Yeah. So as I was saying, the first version of Itheum was EVM compatible. So we had data NFT technology, marketplace, everything on EVM, and it worked worked fine. Right? It actually worked really well. But then we were looking at realistically, we were building Itheum to be used by mass amounts of people. If we built this on Ethereum, as an example, no one's gonna go and like really be trading data as NFT because of the gas, right? Gas price alone is enough to put people off. But theoretically, we could have stayed in Ethereum or Polygon. We could have gone to Polygon. That's another option. And then do some L2 stuff, and then offload all the heavy data stuff onto that. But what I really like when we were first introduced to MultiversX, I'm like pretty technical, so I actually dived into everything. I read their white paper, used the tech, I did some coding, I got really involved. Yep. And I was like very fascinated by the adaptive state sharding design. Gas charges were low. But then I really liked the UX, man. Like if you look at all the products, right, the UX looked really good. Initially, I wasn't too impressed with the DX, the developer experience. I felt that was a bit off. But now I am actually quite impressed with the DX. But yeah, I think so when I saw all of these things, we said, okay, we need to pick a chain that maybe like 12 months ago, no one knew about, but we could like stand behind the team, we could stand behind the community, stand behind the technology, and then know that they're going to be around in like, 3-4 years. When our technology matures, then we were sure that they would mature. So that's kind of why we picked MultiversX. But we are still a multi-chain protocol. At some point in future, when we are mature enough in MultiversX, we might have a secondary implementation, but the primary implementation for us is MultiversX.
Yeah, that's great, and I agree. I totally love the focus of the team for UX, and I think that's great because onboarding in Web3 is really a challenge, and it still is. It has been for many years, and it's still a challenge, and I think that's very important for like everyone building on top of the protocol that the team has a great focus for UX. So we talked about the good parts, but I'm curious, what were the biggest challenges that you encountered while building Itheum on MultiversX?
Yeah, so initially it was finding the talent to build, right? So we were coming from EVM chain. We had some EVM developers. I myself am an EVM developer at that point. So initially, but this was again, like initially it was a problem, but later on we found that there's plenty of talent. So we designed Itheum, and then we found the talent to build it. Like when we started building, like I was saying, the developer experience was a bit not so great. The documentation wasn't so good. The learning curve was a bit steep.
Yeah, exactly.
We had to work things out relating to like testing and stuff. Like when we started building contracts, we made it very clear that we have to test unit test, code coverage, all these things. There was like really no tooling for this, so we wrote our own tooling. But one of the things that I always kind of wanted to explore more was the scalability of the actual chain, which, by design, it looks like it'll scale. But we were like a bit worried about what happens if like 100 or 1,000 new projects come in. How is it going to scale up? So we were like trying to, like when we were designing stuff, anticipating how we should ideally design it with the shards and all these things, right? Which I'm sure you know about.
Yeah.
So yeah, so far, like I mean, what we are using like MultiversX now, that's a really good developer experience, in my opinion. I still feel like the learning curve is steep. Like if you bring in a new developer
Yeah.
and you put him there, it's gonna be like, okay, where do I start? So that might be an issue, but I mean, this is just a broader issue in any L1, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, looking back 1 year ago, I think things improved a lot on this side. There are more resources, more open source stuff, and like the general developers ecosystem is kind of more engaging, vibrant, and people
Yeah.
like share more stuff and they talk about more stuff. Even though like the bear market and everything, I think on the developer side, more people joined,
Yeah.
and it's way more way more active. But I agree the onboarding curve is still it's is still there, and people like but for example, I had a guy texting me and he was like, okay, I have kids, I have a job, but I want to start learning and building here, but I don't have the time to just check every repo and learn everything. So as you mentioned, like from where do I start? So yeah, I think there's still space for some I don't know, tutorials and more advanced courses and everything in this area to kind of guide you through what you need to learn and not find by yourself. Um, but yeah, I think there are way more developers and way more uh, builders you can work with or collaborate with in the ecosystem now than there was like 1 year ago. So
Oh yeah, for sure, man. Yeah, I think
yeah,
there's a lot more. Yeah, I like your idea about the tutorials, right? Because like if you look at any chain, like if you want to start building on those chains, almost always, man, like the first thing
yeah,
you would do is look at an end-to-end
yeah,
tutorial. And I
yeah,
remember even when
exactly.
I came to MultiversX, I used that tutorial that's on their docs page, that's how I learned to build the first smart contract.
Yeah,
But yeah, there's only like one or two. It's not enough, right? Like we need, okay, how do I do this? How do I launch a token? How do I
yeah,
build a simple DEX? Like that kind of stuff, right? It would
yeah,
really help people.
yeah, exactly. So we kind of touched on this, but I'm curious, like, what would be, in your opinion, the one thing that's missing right now from the ecosystem and will help push things forward a lot? Like, just like think of the one thing that you would bring.
Yeah, I think there's two things, but I'll
Okay,
try.
let's go with two. Okay.
I'll start with the one that's I think the most. Yeah, so I feel like one thing that should happen for sure is integrations with infrastructure, right? So
Yeah.
if you look at MultiversX now, like let's just even look at an example of I just want to do like query the blockchain, right? I have to go and use the MultiversX API, which is fine, which is great, but it's very unusual. If you look at all the other L1s, they like move away from building like their own infra, and instead they would integrate with other companies who are like dedicated infra builders, right?
Yeah.
Which for us that's actually been a challenge. So we use the MX API, and then we're trying to build redundant systems. So then, luckily for us, we did a partnership with Divya Labs, and then we used the Blast API as well. But then you and I were talking about this, like the observer
Yeah.
squads, just to get the events, right? Like just for that one feature, if we've got to run an observer squad, it just seems a bit overkill. So I
Yeah.
think if now, just going back to like what I think would be great is if a lot of the other sort of dedicated infrastructure projects support MultiversX, like let's look at Covalent, Morales, the Graph, all these guys, if MultiversX was supported, it actually does two things. It makes the learning curve easier for new developers, but it also brings a lot of developers, right? Because in fact, a lot of the chains that I have experimented is because I used one infrastructure project that supported one chain and then I moved to another chain. In fact, that's how I discovered Elrond because of Morales, right? I used Morales on Polygon And then they said, hey, we also looking at this, so therefore I look. So I think this is a great way to bring new developers in. Second is, of course, there has to be like, I think to encourage builders to come in, there has to be grants provided, developer grants, all of this kind of stuff. This is the number one way to bootstrap developer activity, I feel. Again, this is from personal experience. Like we got 3 grants from Filecoin, Hedera, and all these guys to build proof of concepts. So yeah, I think this is also a great way to bring in developers and get them working.
Yeah, totally. And going back to the Observer Squad and infra, we talked about this, and I totally agree. Even with the official API, it has pretty small, pretty big limitations in terms of, I think you can, on mainnet, I think you can do like two requests per second, and in a lot of apps, that's way too
little.
Too little, yeah. So indeed, like right now the thing that you have to run your own Observer Squad, it's not so hard really to spin it up, but you don't want to manage it and be sure it's still running, it doesn't have any errors, issues, and things like that. Then as I mentioned, like it's pretty expensive to run it, and depending on what you need it for, it might not worth spending a few $1,000 to host it. Also there might be people that kind of, I don't know, have a hard time actually spin it up and run it. Maybe they don't have the necessary experience or things like that.
I think we spoke about this. Do you think there's an opportunity for like a third-party company to issue Observer Squads as a service? Like, they run the infra and then like you just get the endpoints and then you do something with them. But maybe this is kind of, maybe it already exists. I don't know.
There are, there are like companies that, as you mentioned before, like the Blast API. There are some companies that are running their own like Observer Squad and gateways, APIs, and things like that. But for example, what we needed was the event notifier. We wanted to have events push in a queue and process them from there. So we couldn't find, and we asked around, we couldn't find a provider that was also running an event notifier. So we needed to run our own Observer Squad because of that, because for Giants, for the game, we really needed those events ASAP, because we index all those events for displaying them in the front end. So just a quick example, let's say you place a building on your village that triggers a transaction, and we want the events from that transactions like ASAP, because we want to reflect the changes on the front end. So to make the user experience as good as possible in a game, we wanted to get them as quick as possible. So for that we needed the event notifier there, and of course we have, for the game we have a lot of events that we process.
So what do you think would be like if you like look at your game, right, with the Giants game, like you want to focus on building your game, probably not so much building your infra. So what do you think would have been like an ideal scenario, man? Like would it be like there was another, like the graph or something that supported? Ideally, right?
Something like that would be great, of course. But some third-party service that indexes everything and you can query it, and that would be awesome. Because really it saves you a lot of times, because also with Observer Squad, you need to be careful when protocol changes are pushed and you need to go and upgrade it and things like that. So
it's dedicated. Like you need almost, you don't probably don't need a dedicated dev. You probably need some dev who's monitoring it, making sure.
Exactly. I mean, you can spin up some quick services to just, I don't know, ping it, make sure it's running, and kind of alert you in case something goes wrong. But then you also, as I was talking with you, you kind of need some kind of fallback because, for example, let's say if you just run one observer squad and that's it, and it has some issues of some sort and it misses some events, then you need to make sure you have some kind of fallback that makes sure it recovers those events from somewhere.
And that's really challenging, right? Like especially for a game.
Yeah.
The more activity that you have that's based on events. So I don't know if you can. I'm very curious to know, like, how do you deal with that? Like, let's say the observer squad goes down. I'm actively playing the game, and like all these events are mounting up. Like, does the game stop, or do you like retrospectively like go and?
No, like what we are doing. I mean, right now we're just on DevNet so far. So
Okay.
I mean, it's not such a big deal. But what we are doing right now, we have a very simple fallback. That's basically when we issue a transaction, we issue all transactions from a backend. So you sign them and we broadcast them from our backend. So we store in a database all broadcasted transactions. So we have a fallback that's basically looking on all pending transactions and goes and check them kind of one by one. And in case, and kind of make sure in the database it's kind of the last state that's on the the blockchain. Because we are using a database to basically index everything and process and map everything the way we need the data to be displayed on the front end. In the end, it's not affecting kind of anything really because the actions and logic it's on chain and the contracts, I mean, keep running and everything. But it affects kind of the front end and the way you display stuff if something goes wrong in that area.
Man, that would be great. So if there was like a grant or a bounty or something for a company to integrate event notifications, like I would love to have the graph, right? Like because it's just basically built for this, man. Like, and you just integrate with the graph. But I think stuff like this would really help. Like when you send running an observer squad thousands of dollars, like immediately I think that puts off majority of projects from using it. So I would say
exactly. And usually, I mean, if you actively develop, you kind of need one on DevNet and one on mainnet because I mean
you need to like obviously you can't like go to mainnet as like the first. So you need to run two. So it's going to be at some point we're going to have to run one as well. I think we'll have to like figure out how to maybe do this as well.
Yeah, but I think that would be, if you ask me right now, from like, of course our needs and others' needs are very different, but from my point of view right now, that's my number one pain, let's say. I think the first reason it's not really the money, although it's quite expensive to run it. But I think the first one is that we need to maintain it and we need to take care of it. But the second one, of course, or kind of equally with that, it's the cost of running it. If you also kind of include the cost of the people you pay to work the things on that. So because
and the redundancy part, right? You have to now design everything to be redundant. That has an architecture cost as well. But it's actually it's like you could argue that if you're building anything, you have this problem. So like if you're in Web 2, if you're building on AWS and AWS doesn't provide you with a service, then you have to design it anyway.
But even if you think in terms of like using those resources, what I'm trying to say is that, for example, we are running an observer squad. We don't use it like to its full capacity. I mean,
Okay.
because
Yeah.
really, we don't have such a big project that kind of kills that server.
Yeah.
So we could easily share it with, I don't know, another 1 to 3 projects. It depends. But what I'm trying to say is that, and similar with open source stuff, like 1 year ago, I had the feeling that we were building the same thing that other 5, 10, 15 projects were building. And
Yeah.
like, why just build everything from scratch when we are building the same thing and we can share it and don't lose time and money to build it over again. I think same goes here, because we all spin up observer squads, individual projects, like because I don't know, we need them, but we don't fully use them, so it's kind of some waste usage.
Yeah. Hey, that's
there.
that'll be a cool idea, right? Like, let's say we find out everyone who's running observer squads, and we pool the capacity, and we provide a gateway in front of it, and then offer like a subscription service in front of it, which, like, depending on that, like, I mean, this is like you said, like most people are not going to be using at capacity.
Yeah, totally.
But then it's, of course, it's complicated, right? Like, who's maintaining the gateway service? How do you do like the tiers of usage? But
I think there was someone quite some time ago on the developers group, and he shared some, I don't know, his observer squad or things like that, and then all people started to use it, and he wasn't able to use it anymore.
yeah, so this is like, you got, like, if you do this, then you have some sort of like usage metrics. You got to like
limitations.
cap the usage. So
yeah,
it gets
exactly.
complicated. So this seems to be like even when I'm in different developer groups, observer squad seems to come out a lot. So I think this is a pain point for a lot of people at the moment.
Yeah, exactly. And there are some things that can be done, as I was talking with you, I think a few days ago, where we can, for example, you run an observer squad, I run an observer squad.
We run redundancy between each other. Yeah.
Exactly. We can put a load balancer in front of it, and for
Yeah.
example, if yours is down, you can use mine. If mine is down, I can use yours. And that's good in terms of redundancy, because really I don't need to spin up another one because of that, and I don't use it at full capacity because So let's move away from observer squads for now. How do you think the ecosystem will change in 6 months from now? I'm asking for 6 months because in 6 months a lot of things can happen. You can even like look back 6 months if that helps to kind of make a comparison of how do you think will change in 6 months.
Yeah, so Multiverse, okay, let's look at 6 months ago, MultiversX ecosystem, right? Still called Elrond. The team was like heads down working on MultiversX rebrand, the new tooling, the new product suite. And now they're like unleashing these product suites, and now they're going around promoting. So it's very clear now they're in this stage where they're trying to bring in more developers in. And but I think what's changed though, man, is like we're in this point of time now where there is like a saturation of L1s. There's like every week there's a new L1 now, right? It's almost like L1 is like the new DApp, new DeFi, right? Like everyone's building an L1 based on some slight variance of some architecture. So where would MultiversX have to be in 6 months? I think it's somehow we have to bring in like the market share, like the developer market share. To me, that's fundamentally it, man. If a software engineer wants to build on MultiversX, everything else will come after that, right? Because you get the software engineer, then the technical entrepreneur who comes in and say, okay, I love the ecosystem here, I love the technology, and then they build, and then they would bring in their friends, they would bring in the users, community. So I think what MultiversX, if they really promote the developer first mentality and then integrator first mentality, man, 6 months, it'll be great because technology is good, the branding is quite good, the community is great. Only thing missing now is the developers and the reach, right? Like we need to look at outside of Romania and Europe, which is a great place to start, but now like we got to look at Asia, we got to look at America, like all these places where there's so many developers.
Yep.
So basically that, right? How if you can achieve both of this, man, like, and you bring in more developers, then it becomes a very important L1. MultiversX would just go away from being like just another L1 to like one of the top L1s, right? Which is what we want.
Yeah, yeah, that sounds great. So you mentioned the rebranding, so let's touch on this a little. How do you feel about because it happened like around 6 months ago, in November. So how do you feel right now after like 6 months passed about the rebranding? And also, how did you feel back
Yeah.
then when you heard?
Actually, I liked Elrond. I don't know if I was the only one. Like, but I actually liked Elrond, and a lot of people know Elrond. Like, if like, well, not as many as like I guess people who know about Polygon or something, but at least when I talk to somebody, hey, the Elrond, like they've heard of the term Elrond blockchain, right?
Yeah.
So the rebranding itself, yeah, I thought it was interesting that they did it, but more than the rebrand, I really like the product range, right? Like I'm also like a very product oriented person. So, okay, so we have a strong product here, strong product here, strong product there. To me, this is great. So like the rebrand aside, the fact that it's like a product based company now, which is great. Yeah, I'm curious to know like what did you think of the rebrand?
Like back then, I mean, I was kind of, I don't know, confused, and I didn't know what to think. But right now, I think it's a great. It depends on how it plays out, but the fact that not all people like know about MultiversX, I think it's also a great opportunity to kind of position the company, as you mentioned, as also like a tech and a product company, and kind of yeah, give it a fresh start in the eyes of people. So I think it might be a great opportunity for it, but looking at the entire like concept, not just the name change. Yeah, I think it's great because it brings a lot of new products, for example, like xFabric, and I think that will open the door to a lot of business and institutions, and I think with that we also like open the door to a lot of consumers because yeah, xFabric in the end is kind of a B2B2C product. So yeah, I'm very excited to see. I don't know in a few months how all these products like roll out and what the impact they will have.
I think so there's a few things there, man. Like, okay, the rebrand was great because it's a new opportunity, I guess. But I find like most people, man, like when they say, "Oh, what's this new chain?" The first thing they do is they go to CoinMarketCap and type it in, and then when they see a price like 50, then they immediately know it's not a new chain, right? Like because most people are like mentally thinking if it's a new chain, it's still low cap and stuff like that. So I don't know if people are like they do that and they're like, oh, actually it's an old chain, and then they like move on. So that this is I'm not talking about the technical people, like I'm talking about like the speculators. So that, but you know, I think it is. I'd love it if there is one killer feature that comes out. So I mean, the X portal and all these things are great, but if we can do the walletless login, right? Like, which is a feature, like you use your email and we generate a wallet for you, like account abstraction possibilities.
Like Web3 out, for example.
Yeah, I mean exactly like Web3 auth, right? Like, and we've been actually asking the MultiversX team if there's support for it, because every project we know, the biggest pain point is the wallet creation, right? So if you log in with your email, but then you create a wallet on the fly. Of course, you can do this centralized, like you can just create a wallet in the back end, but that's not good for a project.
Yeah.
It's too much of risk. It should be like Web3 auth. You like log in through the browser, it generates the shared key in the browser session, then trashes it. Man, this would be a killer feature, right? Yeah. I saw like recently in Ethereum, there's account abstraction now. So there was a project that had done that uses account abstraction but generates a wallet in the browser session, and then it's really interesting. I still feel like it's a bit centralized, like the way they're doing the key sessions on the browser. But if MultiversX can solve this somehow, like where the key generation in the browser is actually decentralized too, uh, I think it's a killer way to bring in
Yeah.
new developers
Yeah,
because
we are
everyone wants that.
doing this with Giants.
Oh, right. What are you guys doing?
uh, yeah, like we generate because we didn't want the users to just create use the Bix portal, for example, and go
Yeah.
there and sign everything. Because, for example, you place a building, you just need to open your phone and sign, and that's
Yeah.
not a great user experience. And as you mentioned, we needed something like that. Um, and what we are doing is we generate a kind of an inventory wallet
Yeah, got
in
it.
your
Yeah.
browser. Um,
Oh, that's cool. So
and
wait, are you guys using any tool or you built the tech to do the?
No, we built something. I mean, it's
Oh, very
pretty
nice.
minimal just to do the job. It's also pretty easy to replace at some point if another like provider comes and does this. But I mean, it's doing the job for now, and we kind of really needed something like this because for a kind of fully on-chain game, it's really a
Yeah,
pain
of course.
in the ass to go and
Yeah.
sign everything on your phone each time
Yeah.
you do an action.
Yeah. That's interesting, man. So just very quickly, like just
Yeah.
to touch on that a little bit. So
Sure.
you generate the inventory wallet in the browser session,
Yeah.
then use that to sign the transactions in the background, I guess. How do you like recover the wallet? Like, let's say they log out and then they close the browser and come back tomorrow.
Yeah, what we do is so we generate that on the browser, and we encrypt that wallet with a key that's has two parts. One is a 6-digit PIN that you set when you create the wallet, and the second part is something that's signed using your main wallet that you connected. So in theory, you need the PIN and access to your main wallet to unlock the inventory wallet. But then once it's unlocked in your browser, you can. I mean, we sign the transactions in the background. So when you click to place a building, for example, you don't need to go and confirm anything because it's just broadcasting, signing and broadcasting the transaction
very cool.
in the background.
And do you like to seed the inventory wallet with some gas?
Yeah, exactly. You need to fund it with gas.
Okay.
We kind of give some, for example, when it goes below a certain threshold, we pop a notification that okay, your transaction might fail. You want to top up your inventory wallet.
Yeah. Nice.
But
I like it. Yeah, it's a good UX, right? Like it's a good balance between security and UX, I feel.
Exactly. We tried to find a balance because, of course, we couldn't spend a few months on developing something because, I mean, it was too much. So we tried to find a balance in terms of, I don't know, UX, security, and usability, something like that. And yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, and how is it? It's pretty easy to replace with another provider, and also it's pretty easy to kind of add some other providers at a later stage, because right now the kind of 4 sign-up providers are the ones that everyone uses, like Ledger, Xportal, extension, and web wallet. But then in theory you could generate a new wallet with another provider in terms. I mean, but we need to see how we can kind of encrypt it safely and be able to also decrypt it later.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah, but that's the second thing probably in terms of pain points that we really needed.
These two alone, man, solve so many problems. If you can effectively do events without having to run your own infra, if you have like a Web 2 login experience, I really can't think of anything else. Like, I mean, like it seems like everything else is there. Like the SD, like the smart contract tech is really good.
Yeah.
So you provide these two. Yeah, I can't imagine people complaining too much anymore. It's already quite a. If you do this, you can like build really good, robust, real world applications.
So I think we had a great conversation, and I'm really happy to be able to chat with people and projects, and first of all for myself to like learn from them and hear their story, because I think right now in like this year, I think we want to kind of put a face to a brand and to a project, to a product. It's way more important to learn about the person behind and kind of create that emotional kind of bonding with with the project. So it's great to learn about your background, what you did, and all the story behind Itheum. So to wrap things up, do you have any advice for developers that are interested in building on MultiversX for the first time?
I think we kind of scared half of the developers away talking about observer squads. But no, actually, but seriously, like, okay, now if you're a developer, right, and you're probably doing some Web 2 stuff, and you like want to experiment with Web 3 stuff. I think MultiversX is a good starting point because the UX is good and the community is good. So you can come in here, you can learn stuff. But maybe like the really cool thing could be is if you could like look at Web3 development without any preference to a blockchain. What do I mean by that is, okay, why am I doing Web3 development? Why am I doing blockchain development and not Web2 cloud development, right?
Yep.
And usually the answer is because in Web3 development, I want to build tools that can never be censored. I want to build tools that cannot be, reversed. And then you start designing these sort of tools, right? Like whether it's DeFi or gaming. So I think for the new developers coming in, like come and play with the tech, but then maybe look at what other chains are doing. What are the other tech in different chains? Like, oh, why are they doing that? Can I do that here in MultiversX? And if something is missing, like in MultiversX, I think we should like not expect the MX team to build everything. That is unrealistic expectation from us. Like we are also builders. So maybe we figure out like the observer squad thing, right? Like maybe we as a community can figure out how we can share each other's observer squads or provide some abstraction layer on top of it. So yeah, maybe new developers coming in, try the tech in MX, but then also like zoom out and then look at blockchain tech in general, and then try to work out how you can like bridge the gap between MultiversX and other chains. This is a good starting point, I feel.
Yeah, I think that's a great advice to kind of, first of all, think how the Web3 tech can help you and what you want to build, and not start for the other way around and like with the idea that, oh, okay, I need to build a Web3 product and figure out what that is later on. Yeah, I think that's a great advice.
Yeah, and also I think don't come in with the attitude of, oh, okay, Web3 means quick profit, right? Like, oh, I launch a token and I'm going to become a millionaire. Because realistically, that's not the case, right? Like, unless you're going to scam somebody, you have to come in with like a real use case. Okay, why Web3? Okay, it's really new. And the other thing is know that it's going to be around for, like, this is like the new internet. So you're working on some technology that's going to be really popular in 5 years from now. And then you're going to be like this OG developer who created a lot of this stuff, right? So yeah, it's a great time, man. Like I tell all my developer friends, you guys have to do something in Web3 because why are you stuck in Web2? How long are you going to be doing that for?
Yeah, totally. And I think, as you mentioned, like right now, a lot of people are just focused on crypto, but that's just a small portion of what the technology can offer. And I think in a few years, when people will start to understand the technology more and all the advantages and implications of it, I think, we will see a lot more use cases and people like more educated people in this area.
Yeah.
So, So thanks a lot, Mark, for taking the time, and I hope to have you here soon when you launch more on the or of the products you have in the pipeline.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me, man. Good chat. I love to have technical chats.
Yeah.
Maybe the next one, because Etheum's launching like integrator approach. So when we launch our tech, we have an SDK coming up. We want to like get builders on to build on Itheum. So we having a grants program ourselves to get people to build. Maybe the next one I'll like love to come and introduce people to the actual integrator approach, the SDK
Sure.
and stuff like that.
Sure. Yeah, that sounds great. So
Awesome.
yeah, thanks again for joining, and have a great day.
Cool.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.